Good evening, everyone. My name is John Page and I am from Dymocks Books, and welcome to tonight's Chapter 1. Our very special guest tonight is Kathy Lette. Kathy Lette is a celebrated and outspoken comic writer. She first achieved success as a teenager with the novel Puberty Blues, which has been made into a movie and a TV series, but she's since gone on to write 14 international bestsellers. Kathy lives in London, where she joins us from tonight. Kathy, thank you for joining us for a chat tonight.
Such a pleasure. Hello, everybody. I'm so homesick. Wish I was a battered salve, bit of a surf at Bondi, bit of a girls' night out, socially distanced, obs. So, yeah, it's very nice to see you.
Yes, I mean, I think the beaches might be still a bit away from opening. You could have got in trouble for having a surf at Bondi a couple of weeks ago, but we're getting back to some kind of
my brainwaves, so we're in real lockdown here.
Yes, no. So we've been lucky, and Australia's been doing very well.
Yeah.
But you've released a brand new novel in the middle of all this time.
Can you imagine? I was supposed to be in Sydney having this fantastic pool party. I was going to be carried into the Boy Charlton pool by 8 gorgeous guys in sequined budgie smugglers. I was going to be swinging off the chandelier with a toy boy between my teeth. And instead, I had to do my entire book tour at 1, 2, 3, and 4 o'clock in the morning via Skype and Zoom to TV stations. Imagine having to put full makeup on at 3 in the morning and trying to rub together 2 brain cells to remember what your name is. So I've been really sulking, actually. My lips were sticking out. I've been really sulking. But the book went to #1 in the Australian adult fiction, so it was really worth it.
Yes, no, it's done fantastic. So so the new novel, for those who don't know, is called HRT, Husband Replacement Therapy.
Great title, isn't it?
It's a great title.
What woman doesn't want to replace her husband after 8 weeks of lockdown, right? Except for you, John, or your wife adores you and you're wonderful. But most husbands, I mean, their only contribution to housework was like giving the room a sweeping glance. That was it. Go on, I interrupted you.
So the new book follows the life of Ruby, who at her 50th birthday celebration finds herself blurting out her true thoughts about her guests and accuses her husband, Harry, of having an affair and effectively upends her entire life. Yeah. What was the inspiration behind this book?
Well, I wanted to write a book about women aging disgracefully because I thought at my age I'd feel, like a kind of orthopedic sandal, all comfortable and well-worn and unremarkable, because I do not feel like that. I feel like disco dancing till dawn. So I wanted to say to women, you are allowed to have a second act. I think for women, our life is in 2 acts. The trick is surviving the menopause, which is the interval. And then, why not have fun and frivolity and put yourself first for a change? So that's what inspired the book. And as you say, it starts with Ruby on her 50th birthday, where she gets a little bit drunk and she ends up telling everybody what she really thinks about them. The school mums, the yoga mums, her sisters with whom she's estranged, her mother who's one of those women who needs to go to the vets to get her claws done. And then ends the conversation by the speech by saying, and oh yes, today I found out I've got terminal pancreatic cancer. And everyone's like, oh, it's like she's in social Siberia. It's a complete car crash. Cut to chapter 2. She wakes up with a hangover and a letter plops through the door through the letterbox, and she opens it. It's from the doctor's surgery saying, we're so sorry, we made a terrible mistake. We sent you that letter in error. You're absolutely fine. And she's like, uh-oh. So in her drunken stupor, she booked a cruise with her 2 sisters so she could patch things up, and she then decides she's just going to pretend she's still got cancer so the girls will come on a cruise with her. So, you can see the comedy starting to kind of build up and snowball there. And it's not till they're on the cruise that she realizes that she's accidentally booked them onto a cougar cruise. Now, John, you probably don't know what a cougar cruise is. I will
No idea.
A cougar cruise is where women my age pay and the young men, the cubs they're called, go for free. These are real cruises. So the carnal comedic chaos I could build around these 3 very different sisters who find themselves on this cruise was irresistible. But of course, beneath the fun and frivolity, it's really a book celebrating the sisterhood and celebrating female friendship, as all my books are. Just saying to women, don't put yourselves last. Have some fun and don't feel guilty about it. Don't let your guilt gland throb. Go forth and be fabulous.
So all your novels actually do deal with some big issues, but you always manage to address these issues with your trademark sense of humour. Why do you think humour is so important?
So many reasons. First of all, if you can disarm with charm, you can get your message across much more effectively, you know. So if you can make people laugh, you know, their defenses go down a little bit. And all my books are feminist, even though they're funny. They really promote women and female empowerment, etc. But also, women are funny. I mean, John, you know, because you ran your own bookshop for many years and you work with a lot of women in the book industry. Women are hilarious. When you go on a girls' night out, you have to be hospitalized from hilarity. We laugh so much. And yet I can't tell you how many times I've been on book tour somewhere in the world, because I'm published in like 17 languages, where some male journalist will say to me, oh, you know, you say you write funny books, women aren't that funny. And I think, why do some men still say that? They do. I think they're terrified what it is we're being funny about. I think they presume we spend the entire time talking about the length of their members, which is not good. We also talk about the width, John, which after childbirth, much more important. But, you know, it's not just me imagining that women are funny, because anthropologists say that women in all cultures on the planet laugh more often than men, especially in all female groups. And I think it's a way of, if you can laugh at something, you take the sting out of it. It's like strapping a giant shock absorber to your brain. And, you know, women are second-class citizens. We don't have equal pay. We're still getting concussion, hitting our head on the glass ceiling, and we're supposed to clean it while we're up there, as I always say. So, you know, any woman who calls herself a post-feminist has kept her wonder bra and burnt her brains, because we still have a long way to go. But we don't whinge about it. We tend to laugh about it, because it gives us that great sense of sisterly camaraderie and just helps us to, you know, get through life's darker days. And, you know, women do have a lot of darker days, because generally speaking, we are the carers. You know, we care for aged relatives, fragile friends, sick siblings. We take care of our children's needs, many of which are special. You know, I have a son with autism. So laughter is our absolute lifeline. And, you know, if I have any gift as a writer at all, I think it's putting down in words what women are thinking, but not necessarily saying out loud, but also writing down the way women talk when there's no men around, because it is very raunchy and very funny. I mean, I think male and female humour is very different. My male friends, like you, are very funny, but you tend to tell sort of set jokes. You know, I call it the black belt and tongue fu, where you fire off one-liners, whereas women never do that. We never tell a set joke. Our humour is more cathartic, it's more confessional, it's self-deprecating. We strip off to our emotional undies in 3.6 seconds, and it's a psychological striptease that reveals all. And it's really, really funny. So I just try and capture that on the page.
So you touched on there as well, and the new book does look at female friendships. Why do you think these friendships are important as well?
Oh, well, my whole motto in life is that women are each other's human wonder bras, uplifting, supportive, and making each other look bigger and better. I've got the wonder bra on now, John. I hope you can see. And it's called that because when you take it off, you wonder where the hell your breasts went. So, you know, never wonder where your female friends have gone. Hold each other close, cherish each other, let your cups runneth over with love, you know, and keep each other buoyant. So, yeah, that's my whole motto in life. And I think Australian women also are the world's best kept secret. I mean, I've lived in America, I've lived in New York, LA, London. I have never had such firm and fabulous friendships as my Australian women friends. Australian women are feisty, funny, fiercely loyal, and really feminist. And, you know, I adore that. That's why I boomerang back to Australia as often as I can to get that hit of girl talk and love and laughter. And I've got 3 sensational sisters, by the way. So, you know, and a wonderful mum. So we're very, I'm big on female friendship.
How have you managed to cope in isolation, or being, you know, you haven't been able to come back to Australia for your book tour? How have you kept those?
Rub it in, John. Rub it in. Oh, it's been really hard. But, you know, I Skype my mum every day, and my sisters, we're all constantly on Messenger. And I've got my daughter here. I had to come back because I've got my daughter and my autistic son, so I had to get back here. But the only interesting thing that's happened here during lockdown is that the police have caught all their most wanted criminals because they were at home, you know, self-isolating with their families watching Netflix. And I thought it gives a new meaning to a captive audience. So, yeah.
It does. That's happened here in Sydney as well. I think there's been more drug busts in the last 4 weeks. The police just keep pulling them over while they're on the road and no one else is out on the road. It's like, what are you doing?
The only upside to lockdown, and also I think people are reading more. I think they've rediscovered literature. You know, they're not just you can't. There's only so much Netflix you can watch. So I think it's been a boost for reading as well.
Definitely, we've seen lots of books fly out from the shop. What motivates you and inspires you to write your books and the topics they deal with?
Oh, I think I always write the book I wish I'd had when I was going through something. It's almost like a manual for women coming up behind me, whether it's, you know, puberty or being a single girl in Sydney and trying to find a man who wasn't, you know, married or gay, or married and gay, being Sydney, or who just didn't think monogamy was something you make dining room tables out of. You know, whether it's pregnancy or childbirth or raising toddlers, raising teenagers, dealing with marriage, divorce. You know, I really write them. Well, they're therapy for me. I only write because it's cheaper than therapy. But it also, I think they're books that might help other women. So I'm very big on that. Yeah, my mum's a teacher, and she was a headmistress of infants in primary school, and I think I've got that gene that I really want to kind of enlighten and pass on knowledge, you know, even though it's kind of wicked, wild and debauched and debased knowledge sometimes. But I think if I can make any other woman not feel alone at any period of her life that she's finding difficult, then, you know, I think my job is done.
Excellent. And before all this as well, you recently started doing live shows telling stories about your life. And
Yeah.
you said in the last answer that your novels kind of are inspired by something that has happened to you. Would you consider writing an autobiography next?
Totally. I've been thinking about it, actually. I've got 3 good titles. Which one do you like best? I thought, because I've written so much about motherhood and what, I thought I might call it a memoir. Not
I like
bad.
that.
Or with my surname, what about Let Bygones?
Oh, yeah.
Although I think this is the best one, While You're Down There. Come on. It works being Antipodean. It works as a feminist because we're downtrodden, and it works in so many other ways.
Yeah, no, good levels. I mean,
I am a member of the Clitorati, don't forget. So, I've got 3 honorary doctorates, but the one I really want to get is, there's a thing called a companion of literature, and when they abbreviate it to C.lit. I could put a clit. Fabulous. So that's the one I really want. That would rub me up the right way if anyone familiar with watching. Companion of literature. Thank you.
Well
Having a
done.
bit of girl talk tonight, John. You're going to be ovulating quite shortly.
I better throw over to some questions from people who are listening. But before I touch on that, we were chatting before we went live. You actually have a connection with Dymocks.
That's correct. I worked in Dymocks. I think I'd written Puberty Blues, and the film had come out, and then I got a bit freaked out by the notoriety, because to go from non-entity to overnight notoriety was quite a roller coaster ride, you know. So I pulled back from public life a bit, and I got a job in Dymocks on George Street. And while I was working at Dymocks, I was pretending to sell books, but I was sitting behind the bookcase writing my next book, Girls Night Out. So, too late to sack me now. I do have a big soft spot for Dymocks. I'm a Dymoconian. I don't know what you'd say, but yeah.
Yeah, no, we need to come up with a name for ourselves, but
You do.
go with that one.
And I wanted to thank you for getting behind HRT. I mean, it's been, as I said, it's been #1 in adult fiction in Oz, and it's also, I've got so many movie deals and TV offers. I've got a really big one I can't talk about, but when it comes off, I'm going to be driving around town with a casting couch strapped to my roof racks. So watch out, boys. I'm on my way.
Doing some auditions.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll throw open now the questions to everyone out there. So if you want to type in your questions, we'll put them up on screen and Kathy can answer them. We've got a few people. So here we go from Sue. So are the sisters in the book based on your siblings, Kathy?
Well, totally not. I mean, the girls in the 3 sisters in the book are very different, but they're slightly estranged. The mother has been playing them off against each other. She's really, it was fun to write a really bitchy matriarch, but she's nothing like my mother. My mother is just the most adorable person you could ever meet. And my three sisters also, we get on so well. I mean, the Lette girls, when we get together, we laugh so much, our lips lose weight. So even though we are very different, there's, nothing but camaraderie and support and love there. But I know I do have a lot of female friends who don't get on with their mothers and they don't get on with their sisters. And it's very tricky relationship because loyalty and love is, encoded into your DNA. But if you don't get on, it makes for this terrible accordion of love, hate, love, hate, love, hate. So it's a fascinating area to explore. So it was great fun to write. And of course, all women can relate to it because every woman has a mother and most of us many of us have a sister. So yeah, it was really good fun. But no, in my family, no, we're definitely loving and full of laughter.
Excellent. All right. Have we got another question out there or? Here we go. So from Leonie, what age did you start writing and have you done so ever since?
Hi, Leonie. How are you? I've always written, since I was a little girl. I was used to, I don't mean to sound like I'm going for gold in the ego Olympics, but I would win all the little competitions, writing competitions at school and stuff. And Puberty Blues, I wrote that with a girlfriend, and we wrote that as revenge on the surfy boys, because the boys we grew up with at Cronulla at the time disproved the theory of evolution. They were evolving into apes. It would have looked more natural if they squatted on their haunches and groomed each other's back hair for knits, And there was sort of guys who thought sex drive meant doing it in the car. I don't know about you, Leonie, where you grew up, but I don't know if you lost your virginity in the car. But if we could see the women watching, how many of you lost your virginity in a car? Come on, I know you're lying. We all did. But I worked out why. It's because I worked out why Australian men like to have sex in the car. It's that sign on the rear vision mirror that says objects in this mirror may appear larger than they are. It all suddenly makes sense, doesn't it? But anyway, so I wrote that book really for my surfy girlfriends to say to them that they were more than just a life support system to a pair of breasts. And I had no idea it was going to become such a huge, overnight bestseller. But after that book came out, I thought, well, this is a good job. You get to, wear your jammies all day, drink heavily on the job, have affairs and call it research. What's not to love about being a writer? So I just kept writing. Everything that happened to me, I turned into a novel in one way or another.
Before we get another question up, how did the live show differ from your novel writing? Was that a different challenge, or was that?
Yes, I did this
fiction.
I did this little show called Girls' Night Out. I did it all around Britain, Ireland. I did it at the Edinburgh Festival, the Adelaide Festival, and I've done quite a few around Australia. And it was really just a way for me to meet my readers because they're the most wonderful women. I mean, it's so flattering when I meet these brilliant girls. You just want to go on a girls' night out with all of them. They're warm and witty and welcoming and sisterly. They come in big gaggles of girls, lots of nurses and teachers and doctors, and they come their sisters and their cousins, and it's just such a celebration of female friendship. So that's why I did it. I mean, but I joke that, when you're doing a solo show, a girls' night out, the trouble is you do sometimes fall out with the cast. You do get a bit sick of yourself, saying the same things or whatever. But it was just a great way of getting out there and meeting wonderful women. And that's the only reason I did it. And it was really, really good fun. At the end of every show, we danced to Sister Sledge on stage, we are family. I've got all my sisters and me, and all the girls get up on stage and we disco dance and then we Congo off. I mean, it's just a mad girls' night out, and it's really, really liberating. And to anyone who came to my show, I had such a great time. Thank you for turning up. It was brilliant.
All right, now where's our next question? Here we go, from David. Hi, Kathy, great talk. Are you a planner or a pantser?
What? A planner or a pantser? Well, I do like men in pants, if that's what you mean. I do plan to get men out of their pants as often as possible. How lovely. You might be our only male in the audience. I'm so glad you're slipping between my covers. Satisfaction guaranteed. So no, I don't tend to plan. I tend to fly by the seat of my pants. I've got frequent flyer pant miles is the way I live, So yeah, I mean, I'm finding lockdown really hard because normally if I only had 3 parties to go into in one night, I would think that was a dull evening. So I'm having my social butterfly wings clipped. I found really hard. So I don't plan. I just tend to I never turn down an adventure. That's one thing I can tell you. And I'll tell you an anecdote about that. I put this in my show actually. When I was living in LA writing sitcom for Columbia Pictures, this is back in the 80s, I was working on a show called The Facts of Life. And we had to cast an unknown actor to play one of the love interests. And we cast this unknown actor called George Clooney. And he asked me out. And I said, no. I remember exactly what I said. I'm like, I can't go out with an actor. You put other people's words in your mouth when you never know where they've been. And then years later, by this time I'd married Jeff, moved to London. I'd given birth to 2 babies. I was covered in vomit, hadn't slept for eons. And one of my writer friends from LA, who'd been in the same writing team as me, was visiting. And ER, do you remember ER, John? You're probably too young.
Oh, no,
ER,
I remember you.
Yeah, well, ER was on in the background. I'm going, oh, look at that Dr. Ross, isn't he gorgeous? I could swim through a pool of my own drool to get to that guy. And my writer friend said, but that's the guy who asked you out. That's the guy we cast. That's George Clooney. And I was like, I lay in the fetal position and sobbed for 2 months. Well, wouldn't you? Even a straight guy would go out with George. Who would turn George Clooney out? I thought at the time about ringing him going, oh, George, about that date. I've had time to think it through. So since then, I've never turned down an adventure. That's why I'm always out, just in case it turns out to be the night I run into George Clooney again, or someone similar.
Or the next George Clooney.
The next George Clooney, that's right. I know. What a sad claim to fame. The only woman in the world who turned down George Clooney.
All right, so now we've got a question from Samantha. What did you enjoy most about writing this book?
Is it bad, John, to say that you make yourself laugh when you're writing? Is that really?
Oh, look, I tell dad jokes, and if no one laughs at them, I laugh at them. So no, there's nothing wrong with that at all.
I don't want to sound as though I'm keeping fit by doing step aerobics off my own ego, but I did make myself laugh, especially in the scene with the older woman having her toy boy encounter. And of course it's not really romantic. He's completely horrified by her baby stretch marks and her bikini area, shall we say. So, I mean, I'm hoping that during the lockdown, because in Britain, of course, we haven't been able to go get our hair cut, hence the roadkill on my head, or go to any waxing salons. So people are looking very hairy, like the guys have all got beards, the women are walking around with hairy armpits and hairy legs, and they're going to be hairy all over. So I'm hoping that men have discovered the joys of a little light bushwalking. I'm hoping some of them have even discovered that they love a little bit of bush tucker, is what I'm hoping for. But in this encounter, because young men have grown up on porn, of course, they've never seen a woman in her natural state. They've almost gone back to Victorian times, when they were horrified. Remember, was it Effie Gray's marriage wasn't consummated because, Ruskin, whatever his name was, saw that she had pubic hair and he'd only seen those statues with the moulded bit between the legs. So it's gone back to this weird thing where the young men are kind of horrified at seeing a natural woman. So that was really, really good fun to write. That scene, I did make myself laugh a lot then. So, yeah, I did enjoy it. I just thought, at my age, how many books have I got left? If I'm not going to enjoy writing them, why would I bother?
Yeah, if it's hard work, why do it?
Yeah,
Right.
it's like
I can't read that name, but what about writing do you think is important to teach children?
Hello, is that Brian?
Brian, not the Messiah. There we go.
What a great tag. I'm just going to worship the water you walk on anyway. So what do you think is important about to teach? What about
what do you think is important to teach children about writing?
Well, just the joy of words. I mean, how lucky we are to have the English language, which is such an eclectic language. The reason it's the language, the international language and the language of the internet, etc., is because we take words from every other language. It's it's organic, it's constantly changing. With a language like French, which is beautiful, is very rigid. But we've taken all the words from France that we like, lingerie, croissant, liaison, rendezvous, champagne. Does a girl need any more French words than that? I don't think so. So, it is the best language. So just teaching young people to love words and also how cathartic it is to get their feelings down on paper and to the joy of reading because, we can't go anywhere at the moment. Flights of fancy are the only flights we can take. And, you opening up a book can take you anywhere in the world. So, it's a joy to cherish for life. So, yeah, it's really important to read to your kids and also to get them writing.
Excellent. Great advice. I'm now on from Suzanne. What book inspired you to write as a child?
Hello, Suzanne. Hi there, darling. What inspired me to write as a child? Well, my mother was a teacher, so she read to us all the time. And is it cliche to say it was actually Peter Pan? But
No.
I wanted to be Peter. I didn't want to be Wendy. It was just so boring. She was so decorative and demure and good. I wanted to either be Tiger Lily, who was a bit wild, Tinkerbell, who was wicked, or to be, Peter Pan. Yes, boys always get all the fun. So yeah, and then of course getting older. I mean, I love a lot of the women. I left school at 16. I always joke the only examination I've ever passed is my cervical smear test. I'm an autodidact. You know that word, John. It means it's self-taught. Clearly, it's a word I taught myself. But I'm inhale literature. I'm reading all the time because I'm trying to make up for my my lack of education. So, Jane Austen, what a feminist. Beneath that beautifully crafted prose is a, mind of steel. And the fact that she, Elizabeth Bennet, she wanted Elizabeth only to marry the man she loved, not to marry for money, which was very unusual at the time. And even her doppelganger, Bridget Jones, once the snooze alarm goes off on her biological clock, she's no longer looking for Mr. Right, but Mr. Kind of Okay, Mr. Vaguely Bearable, Mr. Two Corpses Short of a Serial Killer, just to get a husband. And Lizzie Bennet is so much more radical than Bridget Jones because she's only going to marry for love. So, yeah, Jane Austen is a feminist pin-up of mine, of course. So, yeah, all that gang, George Eliot, Middlemarch. Don't start me. Don't start me. I'll start plucking my eyebrows.
Won't stop you. Now, so here's a question from Marge. What has autism taught you?
Hello, Marge. Maybe you might have a child on the spectrum, I imagine. Well, I've written 2 books that touch on autism. One is called The Boy Who Fell to Earth, and the other is called Best Laid Plans. And why I wrote them, I wanted to try and help take the stigma out of autism. So they're funny books, but they're also, of course, you emote and care for the character. And there is a lot of autism in the community, much more than has been diagnosed. They call it an extreme form of maleness. So, if you know any guy out there who's a train spotter or a plane spotter or he's an emotional bond sign, you have to whack the fertilizer on to get any feelings out of him. There's a very good chance he's undiagnosed on the spectrum. And what my son has taught me, he was diagnosed at 3, is there's no such thing as normal and abnormal. There's ordinary and extraordinary. And people on the autistic spectrum, and if anyone who doesn't know, autism, it's a lifelong neurological condition. Its chief characteristics are an inability to communicate, socialize, often chronic OCD and anxiety, but also often a very high IQ. And my own son is like Wikipedia with a pulse. And, autistic people have a tangential, lateral, literal logic, which is truly unique, exceptional. And we know with diagnostic hindsight that Mozart and Einstein and Orwell and Van Gogh and Steve Jobs and probably Bill Gates and all sorts of incredible mathematicians, musicians and artists are on the spectrum. So with the right help, they could give back to society in the most wonderful way. But too often they end up living in a bedsit on benefits. And I think less than 15% of people with autism are in the workforce, which is a much lower inclusion rate than other disabilities. So I want all of us to start trying to think outside the neurotypical box and just give autistic people a chance to shine. So that's why I wrote those 2 books. And that's what my son taught me. Yeah.
Excellent. What took you to the UK? Marianne asks, or Marianne.
Oh, Marianne, I love the name Marianne. It's a beautiful name. It took me love. I came for love. I always saw England as like the enemy camp, being an Australian Republican. And I've got to say, when I first moved here, when I first fell in love with Jeffrey, he was going out with Nigella Lawson at the time. So the gossip columns here had a field day. They were like, how could good-looking, gorgeous, handsome QC break up with gorgeous, beautiful domestic goddess and the daughter of the Chancellor of the Exchequer for loudmouth, colonial nymphomaniac? And I'm like, how dare they call me a loudmouth? Please, I have to find it. And I do think that Jeff came to regret breaking up with Nigella for me because I can't cook. I use my smoke alarm as a timer. So, but I've come to love a lot about Britain. I mean, I try and split my time now. The kids are older. I can try and split my time between Australia and Britain. So I'm trying to do the summer in both places because the good thing about here, or not during lockdown, obviously, but you conquer the great indoors, the theatres, the galleries, the museums. And as an autodidact, that's my university. So, I'm constantly hoovering up information. But Australia's my love. I mean, I adore being there. I go back usually November and I stay until April. And then I try and get back and forth a little bit during the year doing things. So it's a wonderful country. But what I love about Australians, what I love about us, is that we're skeptical. We have chronic skepticism, but we're not cynical. We don't think optimism is an eye disease, nor do we suffer from an irony deficiency. So that mixture of irony, skepticism, and optimism is quite unique and delicious. And I've never found that combination anywhere else in the world. So, yeah, I'm Aussie through and through.
Last question, everyone.
Because I'm such a chatterbox, I'm sorry my answers are so long. The mouth from the south, darlings. What can I say? Last question.
Who's going to be? Oh, here we go. Anne. So my ISO experiment is how long can leg hair grow? Do you have an ISO experiment?
It's terrible because I see all these great questions coming up on the side. Oh, that I'd love to answer them all. Well, yes. What can I say? I didn't like my beard at first, but then it grew on me. I'm actually, the hobby I've taken in lockdown, everyone's getting hobbies, they're doing painting or learning a language. I'm doing macrame hanging basket arrangements with my own little bits of chin hair. Because just think of all the things women go through in life, right? This is how we know God is a bloke. First of all, we get taken hostage by our hormones as teenagers. We get the terrible periods. Then we get pregnant, we fall pregnant, where everything swells to sumo wrestler proportions. Then there's childbirth, where you stretch your birth canal, the customary, like 5 kilometres. Then there's mastitis. Then there's the menopause. And then just when everything goes quiet, do you know what happens, John? You grow a beard. How can that be fair? So, yeah. So that's what I'm doing in ISO. I'm learning to love my beard. Yeah. Not really beards, it's the annoying little ones, it's too much girl talk for you. But yeah. Oh, there's so many great questions. What do I like about men? Oh, so much to talk about. Oh, yeah.
Well, here we go. We've got another one. Another last question. What do you love most about men? From Lisa Dart.
Okay, last question. I will say, even though I am such a feminist and a champion of women in everything I write and everything I say and everything I do, I love men, of course, especially the men watching this girl talk, because obviously you've flopped onto the shore and evolved. And, we need you. We feminists have been saying the same thing for so many decades, and nothing's going to change until you boys join us at the barricades and help us get equal pay. And it's not as though we're asking for too much. We want equal pay. That'd be nice. We'd like men to work out that Mutual Orgasm's not an insurance company. That'd be very nice, John. Thank you. We'd like you to help all around the house, which is in your interest because it's scientifically proven no woman ever shot her husband while he was vacuuming. And we'd like you to do the odd sensitive thing with snow peas in the kitchen, because the way to a woman's heart is through her stomach. That's not aiming too high. Men always say to me, oh, what do women really want in bed? Let me tell you, John, breakfast, and a very good book, which I just happen to have with me. Dropping my own name, it's an art form. But that's all we want. I don't think that's asking a lot.
No.
And we love the men who will come on that journey with us.
Excellent. Good advice. Now we've got one last question from Caroline. Are you working on another book?
I am working on another book. I'm just starting to concoct what's what's making my creative juices rise. So yes, I am. And the lovely thing about doing my one-woman show that I was doing is that my lovely, lovely women readers bring me up little anecdotes, like anecdotal doggy bags, little things they've saved up for me that they think I might like to use, and I do use them too. And that's so typically generous of Australian women, always helping each other out like that. So I've got a few ideas, but it's very bad luck to talk about your book before it's down on the page. So let me just say I'm very excited about HRT getting up to #1 in Australia. Fabulous. Very excited about the TV deal. Yes. And I'm very, very excited about the book that's bubbling up. But more anon, what can I say?
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Kathy. And for those of you out there, you can grab a copy of Kathy's book, HRT, from your local Dymocks. We're all stores are open, so you can pop in. If you can't get to your local store, give them a call. They can post the book out to you. There's lots of ways you can purchase Kathy's book from Dymocks. Thank you again for joining us tonight. And please join us for our next Chapter 1 event next Wednesday. We're going to have a special cooking episode of Chapter 1 with Charlotte Reed. So join us for that one. And Kathy, thank you so much for joining us, and have a great time in London, and hope to see you back in Australia soon.
I'll see you all on the other side. And I'm so sorry I couldn't answer all your wonderful questions. They're great questions. I can see them there. Guys, keep safe, keep sane, keep sanitized, but make sure you always keep a very dirty mind. I'll see you on the other side. Bye, everybody. Lots of love. Bye.